I, like many of you, have been aware of the Huawei Mate X2 because it has so many new improvements on the foldable design that I think a lot of us can agree this is one of the coolest, most optimized versions of a foldable we've ever seen. And while I still doubt Apple will ever release one, I think that they're keeping their eyes on a product like this because it's the closest a company will get to making an iFold or whatever. Let's begin. So the purpose of this video is not to give you a summary or a rundown on what the Huawei Mate X2 is, but a far better YouTube channel you can watch is MKBHD, who you guys all probably know already, but he did a great breakdown of all of the different features and all of the great benefits of the Mate X2, which involve a far less noticeable crease, an actual smartphone looking design when folded up instead of, long TV remote skinny smartphone and then weird aspect ratio when opened up. This one's pretty square when opened, but there's no notch or camera holes when opened, and still a solid suite of cameras and a wedge design when unfolded so that the center of gravity fits more comfortably in your hand. Seeing all of the great tech specs, knowing that both the inside and outside displays are 90 Hz and pretty flagship caliber, I got pretty excited when MKBHD posted his video, and rewatching it I was like, dang, I think this kind of beats out the Z Fold 2 in several categories. In fact, is probably a better foldable overall. But one little detail that I noticed Marquez not bring up in his video about it is the price, and I decided to look it up myself because I was curious, and I then realized why Marquez didn't want to bring up the price. Because even if this phone was going to get shipped into more markets, which it can't have the Google Play Store, and it's probably going to be primarily targeted in the Chinese demographic, so it's not really competing in the same markets as the Z Fold 2 very much. But even if it was, I don't think it would hold much of a candle to the Z Fold 2 because it's already an expensive foldable. Samsung's trying to do their best to pack the best hardware into a $2,000 phone, but at the end of the day, I think that's the main issue foldables have, is that yes, there are some compromises and there are some benefits, but whatever those benefits are, they rarely justify the additional cost, and that's why majority of people aren't that interested in them. And they have addressed a lot of the compromises with the Mate X2 by making the crease far less easy to see, making it more comfortable, making it more usable, both folded and unfolded, but it was all at the big compromise of the price point, which the Mate X2 starts a little bit over $2,700 for the base configuration, and if you want to get a bit more storage at half a terabyte, then that's going to be closer to $3,000 once you start factoring in tax. And I think it's safe to say that with the majority of people buying smartphones under $1,000, I know that we get really used to having flagships come out that are $1,000, $1,100, $1,200, $1,400, but those are not the best sellers. Typically, the phones that are selling the best are sub $1,000. Maybe with iPhones, you could make the argument that the $1,000 variants with the iPhone 12 lineup are doing pretty well this year, but knowing that a really solid foldable that actually has some compelling use cases is still going to be closer to $3,000 than $2,000, that's going to prevent a lot of people from buying into this foldable future, because obviously they would much rather have a tablet with no compromises and a smartphone with no compromises for much cheaper. A 2-in-1 can't be bad at being both for more expensive than paying both. But personally, I think someone like Huawei can experiment with this type of thing and get a lot of good press, but probably not very many sales, whereas Apple, because of their brand reputation and because of their extensive user base and their presence in so many different markets, I personally think they could kind of get away with something like this. If you're gonna say that's a bias or a double standard or anything, keep in mind who you're watching right now. I've basically been an Apple sheep my whole life, guys, so keep that in mind here. But I also think even non-Apple fans can agree that Apple typically is able to market and sell products that are far more expensive than their competitors because they'll be able to brag about how the software is integrated and how it complements the rest of your Apple ecosystem. And whether it be the Pro Display XDR or AirPods Max or Mac Pro wheels, there are certain Apple products that are stupidly expensive for what they are, but because there is some feature or because there is some perk to this thing that you can't find outside of the ecosystem, people will buy it. So I don't think think Huawei can have that much of a hit with a $3,000 foldable, as impressive as it is, but I think if Apple wanted to make some type of $3,000 iFold, they might actually have a shot. I'm not saying it would outsell the rest of the iPhones, but if they actually could build a device very similar to the hardware in the Huawei that essentially was combining the feature set of an iPhone 12 Pro Max and an updated iPad mini, maybe to sweeten the deal, since this would be like a $3,000 mobile product, you could throw in a year of Apple One Premiere or whatever, so all the Apple services, AirPods, Charge Brick, MagSafe, and everything is included in this box. And as iPhones get more and more stale over the years, Apple might be forced to do some kind of wacky luxury segment that they've never done before just to get iPhone on the map and get people talking about them again. I'm not saying it's likely, but I'm saying I could see how Apple would want to pitch some kind of smartphone luxury experience of like, yes, this is our first device that can run the latest iOS, but also run the latest iPadOS. And you could take advantage of all the split screen features and functionality of a larger, wider aspect ratio tablet when unfolded, but then when folded up, you can use it just like you do with an iPhone and still be rocking the great LiDAR cameras, the sensor shift image stabilization. Knowing Apple, they would probably still want to have Face ID, at least when it's folded up, and maybe some kind of biometric when unfolded, but knowing how many eyes Apple has on them and knowing the iOS App Store and its great catalog of apps to choose from, alongside the insane catalog of iPadOS apps to choose from, this could be a two-in-one product that maybe some people could start justifying if you were considering, you know, many people buying iPad Pros are getting close to the $1,000 price segment, and the iPhone 12 Pro Max is apparently selling pretty well, and that's going to be around $1,100. So you start combining those features and then start throwing in the fact that this is going to be a luxury device that comes with some exclusive services and comes with AirPods, and they sweeten the deal or brag about how cheap this is to get on a monthly plan if you have the Apple Card or something like that. Then I could see Tim Cook wanting to brag about this on stage, because of course they would keep their normal smartphone line going, and the important thing to remember is that if Apple did find a way to make a foldable that was as cheap as the regular iPhones, because it's a two-in-one, it could potentially start eating into their iPad sales, which would not be good, and you don't want it to eat away at your iPhone sales at the same time, so it would probably be in Apple's best interest if they did make a foldable to start off with the ultra high-end premium segment. That way it doesn't eat away at the purpose of the iPad lineup, because that of course will be far cheaper, and it keeps the iPhone lineup solid as well. It would probably just eat away at the high-end Pro iPhones, which already have pretty thick profit margins. With an iFold, it would probably be even thicker because you're getting people to spend $3,000 on their next phone instead of $1,000. And once again, this is not necessarily a prediction video. This is not even a wish list. I don't want necessarily Apple to do this, but from a content creator's perspective, I would agree it would be quite fascinating to see happen. And if someone was telling me, Drew, okay, Apple has to be making a foldable, they're definitely going to release one, how do you think they're going to do it? This is pretty much how I would imagine them doing it. And I think Huawei made a pretty amazing product. It's just a shame it's so dang expensive and it's not going to be coming to the United States, but gives my mind a lot of food for thought of how Apple would enter the foldable market if they really, really wanted to, and I think that is a pretty good example of how they would do it. Let me know your guys' guesses on how Apple would enter the foldable market. Would they make something super expensive like this, but unmatched, as in you couldn't get a foldable any better than that, or do you think they would try to take it a more affordable route? Feel free to let me know. This is Ralph Sheep here. We'll see you guys in the next one.